What's worked and why has that worked?
One, we had to make sure we were being sensitive to the Lord, and doing that, once we decided, hey, let's figure out what the Lord wants us to do in reaching our community and connecting to our neighbors so that we can start or continue a gospel conversation with them. We really hit it from three angles. We did some inclusive activities where we were really casting the net in a big way, and simple stuff. And then we did some intentional draws where we were doing things that we knew our community liked, so that they would come to our house, or come to a place where we were. And then of course there were some individual invites. So looking at the inclusive activities, if you want me to just kind of break down a few of those. Some of the things we did is that we would just put invites out on social media. In the context we were in, we would put invites out in social media to invite people to specific things, whether that would be Bible studies that we hosted in our house for people that were disconnected or were just curious about the gospel or curious about Christianity. And then we also did big inclusive activities where we would go out, and we would actually just pick 7 streets near us. Now it was heavily populated. It was a dense population where we were, so we didn't have to go far. But we did, for all the years that we were down there starting a church, we did watermelon giveaway around July 4th every summer.
You're referring to the Atlanta area. You're talking
the Atlanta area.
You were planting in inner city Atlanta. Okay.
Right. And so we would just go and do that. Now we're also giving away watermelons where I am now, in a very rural setting. We did that this summer. Same, fairly different demographic, but same problem within the community, and that is the view of the community towards the church. And I don't mean even just that particular local church, but the church in general. So we would do something inclusive where we didn't pick or choose anybody. We just covered everybody, whether it's an invite to a Bible study where we put it out on social media and it landed where it landed, or if we went door to door and gave away watermelons, no matter who it was. Then we did some stuff where we were doing intentional drawing. We were trying to get people moving towards us. Now that took some time because we had to figure out, okay, what would our neighbors be drawn to? We learned that there was lots of animals in our city and lots of domesticated puppies, dogs, and people love their dogs. We put puppy biscuits out in our front yard near our mailbox, and we were able to see people walking up and down our street with their animals. And by that puppy biscuit box, we put, we love our neighbors and we love our neighbors' dogs too. And people would just stop, and we made sure that all of our neighbors knew that, hey, treat your dog. And then we had dogs that would go on walks that would drag their owners to our house just because they knew. And it was great because we could see them coming up. We had a big bay window in our front, in the little house we were renting, and we had a window so we could see people. So as soon as they stopped and grabbed a puppy biscuit, it took a minute for the dog to eat it. So we were able to get out there and at least start a conversation. And then that really moved to individual invites. We were able then to put a name on an invite, and they were able to put a face on the inviter, us, to a barbecue, a Bible study, an outreach opportunity. I'll tell you, one of the things that we did, one of the intentional draws is if we went and served in a part of our city that was underserved, whether it be a underserved school or our population that's experiencing homelessness, we always invited our neighbors. And we because we knew that they valued others, not in a biblical.
Well, no, I just want to make sure I'm clear. What you're saying is you invited your neighbors. They didn't have to be a part of your church. They weren't necessarily Christian. Many of them may not have been Christian, but you're saying because you're trying to build relationship and they valued helping somebody who, as you said, underserved, they valued that. You weren't asking them to go and share the gospel, but you were saying, hey, look, can you go help us feed the homeless or whatever it may be? Am I getting that?
Absolutely. It was fascinating. And so many of them would come. And then once we get to the event or the ministry location, somebody's going to share the gospel. And so they're going to hear the gospel. It may not be directed right at my neighbor, but they're going to hear it. Whether we gather them all in a big group or whether we're at a school and we're praying over the kids, whatever it is, they're going to hear that gospel. And it was amazing to see them participate in something that they would have never participated in if I'd have said, hey, y'all come down to the church and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. It
Right.
was, no, we're going out as the church. Why don't you come with us? We believe, and there's a lot to unpack here when it comes to doctrine, but we thought our approach was, if we're going to be neighbor minded and we're going to be other people minded, that people can belong before they believe. And
belong before believe. Okay.
And because our neighbors they didn't need money where we lived. They didn't need stuff. But they needed connection. They were completely disconnected. They were transplanted from other parts of the world, other parts of the nation, and they had no family, and everybody's sort of a misfit. And so we went ahead and said, instead of some of the other models that we'd been in, where you have to claim belief before we really let you in.
Right.
And that's a model. That's fine. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but in our context, we wanted them to know that they had a family that they could connect with, and they didn't have to believe everything we believed yet. Didn't mean we weren't trying to get them there, and it didn't mean that we weren't. We hid it. They knew who we were and they knew what we believed, but we said, just please come, be a part, and trust the Spirit to do what He does.
Well, now you've just blown it up for some people, because there's some that still think that you got to attend at least 3 weeks in a row or something before you can actually belong to anything. So,
right.
But you're not talking about belonging, quote unquote, to the church. You're talking about the gut level, raw sense of belonging, trying to fill that void that people have inside of needing connection. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, I've pastored enough existing churches to know that everybody on the roll that's a member is not a believer. I mean, it's just, but membership is put to the front so much that if anybody was going to really feel connected to that church, they had to, in their minds, probably they have to be a member. So they join, they say what they're supposed to say. They may even go through with baptism, but in many cases, they're not believers, but they needed the belonging. But if we decided we were going to take that to the next step. Now, if our neighbors ever said, hey, I want to serve, I want to start a Bible study, hey, I want to lead a prayer group. Okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about conversion. We're going to talk about the God, make sure that they're believers. There was not, I mean, I think about my own family. Not everybody in my family. If we got all of my extended family together and we all sat down to eat and we said, all right, listen, unless you're a believer, you're not going to eat here with us. You're not going to spend time with us. No, they're still our family. We still help them. We still gather with them. We still connect with them. But, so that was the method that we used. If I would have told my neighbors they had to join a church or join us, officially with a piece of paper by signing what they believe, it'd have closed the door. And again, remember, we're trying to start or continue the conversation long enough to get to the gospel.
Right. Well, and let me ask you this. If somebody in the community, in a neighborhood, this is any kind of community, but they say, I'd be interested in having a Bible study in my home. I mean, you can still have a Bible study in their home, even if they're not believers, and say, look, I tell you what, let me come teach that. Or somebody else that you feel confident with as a disciple of Jesus could go and teach that, and let them host, let them have some snacks, let them invite their friends, their circles of influence, that network. I've seen that work more times than once, for sure, because the lost people, they have a totally different network of people connected than you as a church leader or many of your people in your church.
Absolutely. I mean, even now in a rural setting, over the summer and moving into the fall, and then hopefully jumping off in the next year, our goal is to recruit 4 families that will open their doors for one of us, me, or one of our other Bible teachers to come into their home and teach a Bible study. And I don't care what they believe, if they'll open their house, because isn't that really what discipleship is? I mean, how many times did Jesus run across somebody and say, hey, I'm coming to your house? Exactly. I'm gonna hang out with you and the rest of your crew. I mean, that's, to me, that's as much of an outreach of teaching the scriptures, teaching the gospel in a home of unbelievers. For some reason, we've changed, right? You remember when people used to come to church and they would have some kind of communication, or maybe they would communicate in some way that they had some questions about the gospel or being saved. I mean, we're looking decades back, at least in the West. And then somebody would go to their house, in their home, and disciple them either into salvation or confirm that they've been saved, or maybe into a call of ministry. That's what we did then. I mean, we were baptizing people at a pretty good clip, and there's so much discipleship to take place in the home, and we got to be more intentional about making sure that we're at least entering those areas of people's lives, so that it becomes more than this church organization thing trying to do something, versus, hey, this is my neighbor and he came all the way, or she came all the way over to my house and was willing to talk to me about this. Or when it comes to the Bible studies that we talked about opening those in homes of unbelievers, as long as the scriptures I'm accountable to the Lord about what's taught out of the scripture. I get that. But just because somebody that doesn't know Christ is willing to open their home doesn't mean we say, hey, here's the book of James, go at it. No, we walk beside them and we teach it in their home, or we have somebody that we know or that's part of the church or the group that teaches them. So it's, it can be both, right? It can be outreach to the host home, and it can also be discipleship when it comes to the people that gather there. It's best of both worlds.
Well, and we need to remember, at that juncture, those illustrations you just gave, Jesus is discipling his disciples. They don't realize what's coming. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't understand how their world is literally going to be turned upside down, but he is leading by example.